So, Mike, what got you into the firearms slash outdoors industry to begin with?
Good question. So I grew up hunting and fishing just a little bit. I've always been interested in the great outdoors. My dad took me backpacking, I think, when I was, I don't know, second grade or so. We went on a few little fishing trips here and there, a few hunting trips here and there. Um, there was something about it that made me want to continue to get out there. But I really didn't get into it full steam until I met my wife. Actually, I married into hunting. I always like to say because her dad, my father-in-law, huge hunter, born and raised Southern Missouri, Northern Arkansas, and hunted nonstop. And that was basically like a prerequisite for me to marry his daughter was to get into it. So he got me into it. He got me into bow hunting for whitetail. And it just kind of stuck. I mean, there was always that seed there, right, of enjoying the outdoors, loving the outdoors. So once I, spent my first time in the deer stand, I was kind of hooked. And then from there, as far as firearms go, the more you sit in a tree stand and hunt for your food, the more you realize that how important self reliance is. And so that kind of line of thinking eventually kind of led me to, well, if I'm going to be on the hook for getting my own food, um, I should probably think about being on the hook for defending myself and my family. And so that's kind of the path I took to get to the firearm space.
I think it's a funny way you put how that was sort of like a prerequisite of kind of meeting your wife, I guess you'd say. Um, yeah, I think coming from someone who I aspire to get into, hunting and firearms, that whole space. I call it just in general outdoorsmanship. I mean, I didn't come from a background of hunters really. I have an uncle in my family who is pretty much an avid hunter, fisher. That's pretty much it. It was never really like in my family, so it's something that I gotta, I guess, learn, and I guess I'm kind of a late bloomer to that. But really, what you're talking about, the self-reliance aspect of it, was really the main draw. I mean, I'm a big animal lover. I mean, I love animals, but as my uncle says, I also like them on my plate. So it's it's not so much about like, the trophy aspect. I mean, sure, that's a nice maybe thing to have, maybe have a 13 point buck on, above your fireplace or something. But, I think that the self-reliance, just sustaining for myself and my family, is really the draw. And I think that's the draw for most people, I would imagine, especially those that get into it a little maybe later in life, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that was something that at least I noticed right away was, the hunt, the recovery of the animal, like the respect you have for the creature in that moment where you're recovering them. And then when you first cook a dish, my first venison dish, I can't remember what it was. I know at one point I made venison breakfast sausage that nobody liked, so that was a little disappointing. But that excitement, to share what you've harvested with the folks you love, that was something that I didn't expect to hit me so hard. But again, it kind of goes back to that self reliance and the fact that you're able to, provide for your friends and your family from, uh, getting up at 5 in the morning or earlier and sitting in the freezing cold and wanting to quit, but pushing to stay further, and then finally it paying off. And the whole process is such a long process, and to be able to at the end of the day, at the end of the whole process, to nourish people, it's a pretty powerful thing. And I'm not the best hunter in the world. We still shop. We still go to the grocery store and get our meat, quite a bit of it. But there's something special about it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very primal, and I think just very, I guess, just true to our nature as like humans. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see that's how we evolve. Even just every detail you're describing, like getting up like that super early, like going out, on the hunt, and sometimes it could be just hours you're spending up in a tree stand, right? And just that experience of like, cooking. I can only imagine just the pure feelings of like I guess, a combination of bliss, joy, reward, fulfillment. All these things must be going through your head, right, as you're doing that, huh?
Yeah, it's during the down times, when there's nothing much going. It's funny. I realized really quickly how or why the hunting industry is so filled with new inventions and trinkets and ways of doing things and products. Because the guys that are hunting and fishing are just sitting by themselves for 6 hours at a time. And all they have to do is think about what's one thing that would make this better. And just go over it in their head. So that's why there's so many, in my opinion, that's why there's so many good inventions and innovation in the hunting and fishing space, because that's all we have to do is think. Um, but as far as the yeah, I mean, it's a very rewarding process, very rewarding. It's hard, and I think that's what makes it rewarding in the end. Um, nothing that's worthwhile really comes easy, and I mean, hunting definitely falls into that category.
Sure. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And it's interesting how you talk about like the innovation. Like, I mean, I'm younger, but so I don't know maybe like what the world of outdoorsmanship was like. Maybe even before like you started out. Well, you're not that much older than me, but still, that's a while back. But but a point I'm making is like I don't know. Was this sort of sense of like innovation, you think, and like all these different like products and gear, is that kind of a new thing, would you say, in this whole world, or has that always been kind of a flex for hunters?
That's a good question. I mean, relatively speaking, of course, yeah, it's newish. I mean, I remember, my father-in-law telling me stories about he and his dad and his brother would, they didn't have tree stands. They would find a tree and they would nail two by fours to it, and sometimes put a platform in it, but more times than not, they just climb high enough to sit in the branch. They'd be wearing jeans and, plaid flannel shirts, and they still got the job done. But I think probably in the last, this is a wild guess, but I'd say probably in the last 40, 30 years is where the innovation really started to take off. I mean, tree stands, ladder stands, probably some of the first. But yeah, I mean, he was hunting probably back in the 70s and 80s, and that was still pretty much the Wild West. They were still nailing boards in the trees and climbing up. So yeah, I'd say it's relatively new.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, come to think of it, I think just like a sense of like being innovative and like investing into like gear and even like, proper clothing and all these different things. Like, I mean, I think it's might just be a testament to just kind of like where people are going now in any pursuit, like in fitness. I mean, you think about like, you know, pre Mr. Olympia, even like, the days where like my parents, for instance, in that generation, when they'd be like lifting, it would just be in their basement. They would have a bench and they'd probably be wearing
Yeah.
jeans, like you said.
Yep.
I mean, they didn't really have like, what are they called? The BCAAs or all those supplements
Oh
or,
yeah, all
yeah.
the nutrients and yeah.
Yeah, so I think like it's this sort of like sense of like innovation. It's like I'd like to think maybe it's that we're maybe getting smarter or maybe a bit more we're taking things a bit more seriously in pursuits, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's like a novelty, but because I think maybe because we don't need to hunt or you know do certain like activities like that in the wild anymore. It's like to just to survive. You can get food at the grocery store. Maybe
Hmm.
it means that like we're as a culture, as a species, um we're seeking, because we're actively seeking those things out. We're trying to be more optimal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with it. I feel like it's human nature to always be looking for that edge, right? And always, if you have I'm speaking, from my own experience. If I have an unsuccessful hunt, or for example, if I leave the tree stand because my toes get cold, I feel like the next thing I'm doing is hopping on Amazon and figuring out, okay, do I need the little hand warmers, or should I get some electric soles for my shoes? I'm always looking for something to kind of give me an edge, and helped me stay out a little longer. And I think it's a lot of it comes from that the human just desire to push themselves a little further, continue to kind of search for that edge that they can get. Yeah, that's probably, that's like the story of the advancement of tools, right? Like it's just a continuation of that.
With all that said, like your pursuit, I guess, into this as a career now, as a professional, like it, it all just kind of it seems like it all just kind of fell like in the right place. Like you were already actively um, living that lifestyle. You were, and then like you said, getting into firearms. So I imagine that probably must have given you a that was a hefty like prerequisite for making that a profession, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a kind of a funny story. So, right out of school, I worked for a big ad agency. Um, got to work on some really, really fun clients. Did the agency thing for a long time. Went over to an in-house e-commerce team, and while I was out at that in-house e-commerce team, that's when I really got into hunting. That's when my wife's father and I really kind of spent a lot of time together in the woods. And it's actually kind of a funny story. I forget who started this. I must have heard about one of those float tank places. You know those things? It's like salt water and you're floating in there. It's like a sensory deprivation thing. And so I went in there and for an hour, and I was like, hey, what am I going to think about? So I went in there and I decided I was going to kind of see if I can't, put together some sort of plan, like a vision for where I want to be in 5 years. And so in that in that hour, I realized I love being outdoors. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love spending time outdoors. I'm going to take every opportunity I can get to make that part of my career. And then honestly, it was kind of serendipitous. I feel like not too long later, I got a call from an old buddy of mine who ran his agency, and they were the agency of record for a big outdoor store. And he said, "Hey, you want to come work over here?" And I said, "100%." And so from then on, I've just been just kind of following that path that I laid out in a float tank here in St. Louis. So kind of a weird story, kind of an odd way to of me kind of getting where I am, but that's kind of how I laid the plan out.
Oh, dude, that's an awesome story. I think, yeah, there's something to be said about spending time in solitude, like figuring out clarity and purpose, right? I mean, I can just speak for myself. I mean, my pursuit into video production and filmmaking as a career, and the way that I designed it, it was in the middle of COVID, and I was just journaling, just in my bedroom, just alone, with no sound or any distractions other than my thoughts. So I think there's something to be said about that. And yeah, I think that resonates with a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, it was. I've never been back to a float tank since, so maybe that was the only one I needed to do. But yeah, it's you're right. There's something to it. Not many people. It actually kind of dovetails into the tree stand experience a little bit too. Not many people can be or are able to be alone with their thoughts for that long, and it's I wouldn't call it meditation. And meditation's a little different, but it's a unique experience, and it definitely helps you kind of put things in perspective and organize thoughts, and it's interesting. I recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I've yet to try one of those. I've seen them, all the time. And certain people like, Joe Rogan always like talk about them. Seems like it would be a really cool thing to try out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth trying.
Yeah, for sure. When you decided to make that leap, was there any pushback from maybe people in your circle? Was there like I don't know if you had said like it when we were talking like earlier on, if there was a any other like sort of path that maybe you or family or friends maybe had envisioned for you, and maybe this like I don't know, did how'd that go with uh, people in your life? Did they like that you were making that jump, or was it kind of a bold move on your part?
Yeah, I think the only time that any eyebrows ever raised, and I don't even know if I would call it pushback, but anybody ever questioned any of my career decisions was when I made the leap to work for a firearms brand specifically. leaping into the outdoor space and hunting space, that was, I think everybody kind of saw that as, at least at that point in my life, saw that as kind of a natural jump, excuse me. But when I went over to work for a firearms brand, that's when people started, are you sure? Just kind of the standard questions you'd expect. So that was probably um, the biggest pushback, I guess you could call it, that I got in my career.
What kinds of like questions, like what kinds of pushback would you say?
It wasn't. It's funny. People kind of you could just kind of sense it. It was like just like the really raised eyebrows. There was one person who said that I mean, flat out said that they wished I hadn't. So there was never any please don't. It was just kind of like you're going to do what you're going to do, but here's my opinion on it. And it was one of those things where you just kind of gotta just let it roll off your back because I'm pretty resolute in my beliefs, and I knew that it was the right thing to do, and that point in time in my career, and so I didn't let it bother me. But yeah, there was definitely some raised eyebrows.
Firearms is such a tricky thing because I'm new to, like I said, I'm new to this whole kind of like world. I'm trying to like get into it, as a pursuit as well, but also just connecting with people and learning about it because I just find it so fascinating. But it really seems to be what I call is like the probably most misunderstood industry out there. I mean, it seems to be just so controversial for people, whether it's like socio-political reasons people have against it, and it's and I'm in I want to try and like leave politics aside, but it's hard not to like bring it up. But I'm in a blue state, and you know I know exactly what you're saying, like the raised eyebrows, certain animosity, people kind of look at you weird. Maybe you have to watch out if you like post a picture of you with a gun on social media, things like that. So it's an interesting world for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very interesting world. I think, and I jumped into it very open-minded. It's kind of funny having worked in the outdoor space. I kind of thought I knew what I was getting into in going into the firearms world, and they're tangential for sure, but they're totally different worlds. One of the first things I realized was that the folks that worked at the firearms brand, they were salt of the earth. They would do anything for you. They'd give you the shirt off their back. They went through the same experience as I did, with the questioning looks um, and whispers, as you pass by at Thanksgiving. But they all are there, and I for the same reason, right? And they've also because they've all gone through those same experiences, they're all there for the same reason. I don't think I've ever worked at a place where values wise, so many people aligned so significantly. So it was a really interesting place to work because we were all kind of singing from the same hymnal. We all kind of believe in the same things, and everybody has their own different beliefs. And that's 100% fine. And those beliefs are just as welcome um, as any other belief. So, but you realize right away that the people just welcome you with open arms. And in that sense, I would say somebody that hasn't experienced that is it's very easy um, to get the wrong idea about this industry as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. Would you say that's like maybe the main thing that just in general people get wrong, or maybe you had like thought previously before getting into that job of just maybe like how the people were, or there maybe like other things that you think you had gotten wrong, or maybe that other people in general have wrong of preconceived notion.
I think in general, the biggest preconceived notion that I feel is that it's, and I don't even know, I might be speaking out of turn here a little bit, but I think there's this idea of this like tough guy culture that is, a part of the firearms world, and there's definitely some of that. There's a lot of prior service, and there's a lot of, um, there's a lot of, there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, that to me is misunderstood because it's really not it's not like a tough guy for tough guy's sake. it's a let's a tough guy to make everybody better, right? And it's not tough guy is the wrong word. I'm using that out of context. That's not the right word, but it's a it's a very man. I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but it's a very supportive culture, but it's a very hard pushing culture, I think, and hard pushing in a way of like getting better, right? Getting better at our craft, getting better as a brand, getting better with everything. So there's, but from the outside looking in, that might be completely misconstrued.
Interesting. There's a lot of maybe high demand, would you say, like high expectation to do better and to in a way there's sort of like a self mastery component to it, right? I mean, I guess like on one end you have like the actual product side of things, like the business side of say firearms, of making the best product you can, and then there's like from a hobbyist perspective, it's like I want to be the best shooter I can be in case
Mm-hmm.
something goes wrong, and I want to defend myself and my family, right?
Yeah, and I think a better way to put that is you're everybody holds themselves to their own highest standard. And again, that comes from a diversity of backgrounds, but I think that's where it stems from. Is there's just this higher standard that you're kind of expected to just continue to push and grow and get better every day.
Love that. I think that's an amazing attitude. I just wish more people would have that mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
It's challenging sometimes, and that's the other beautiful thing is because everybody shares kind of that way of thinking. Is nobody's really afraid to push each other to get better, and that kind of environment is challenging for sure. And maybe it's not for everybody, but to your point, maybe it should be. I've learned more at my time there than probably most of my career because I've been challenged over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, David Goggins puts it, it's callousing your mind, right? you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
there's another quote. I
yep.
think it's like when you're on fire, it's like, it's harder to stop. I think, I wish I can't have it. I don't have it on the top of my mind, but something like that, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, specifically in marketing, what are some of the realities and challenges of being a creative marketing professional in the firearms world?
The list is pretty long. They this is one of the other things I didn't quite know going in. I knew, you hear. The other thing is the kind of person, I don't believe everything I see on TV, right? I don't believe everything that's being talked about on social media. I take a lot of it with a grain of salt. A lot of it's, it's I kind of look at it as just like noise. Maybe folks are being dramatic, yada yada. So I'm from Missouri, I'm the Show Me State, right? So I need to. I've always learned the hard way. But so going in, I knew that there was a lot of talk about all the restrictions and censorship going on around the firearm space, especially in marketing. And getting in there was eye opening because you realize really quickly that this isn't all conspiracy theory chatter. Like this is happening. We have data that shows that we're being censored pretty regularly. You get hit up from all the different marketing or the social media platforms regularly. You're always on thin ice. There's always a watchful eye, and it makes it really hard to do traditional marketing um, in that sense for sure. So I always well, once you get in it, you realize that's why influencers are so powerful in this space because they're kind of a way around it. In some ways, they're kind of a way around, not being able to do paid search ads, not being able to run ads on the big social media platforms. So that was one thing that was kind of shocking. I shouldn't have been shocked because everybody said it, over and over again. But it is real. But there are ways that we're figuring out to still add value to people's lives, customers' lives, and still get our brand and ourselves in front of them without your more traditional digital marketing avenues.
It's got to be, I can only imagine because marketing, I think, is hard in general enough for any brand or any industry. But I think with like, you really are kind of fighting against it's like some weird kind of like obstacle sort of course that you have to kind of bounce around. And I imagine it forces you to be very creative and very innovative, but also sly and very cautious. I don't know if I use the word sly, but yeah, very cautious and precarious. I imagine it's got to be a very stressful position to be in.
Yeah, it's an obstacle course that's always changing. It's always being rearranged. Every morning you wake up and there's an obstacle where you didn't realize there was one. So yeah, it makes you think very creatively. It makes honestly, it makes customer service that much more important. Customer service is a touch point that obviously helps with word of mouth, and so you really have to lean on just normal traditional legacy kind of marketing tools, which is honestly comes down to doing the right thing by the customer every time, delivering on your promises and backing them up. And so those more block and tackle traditional marketing things, tactics have become, invaluable because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe that's a silver lining to it as well, because as you said, with social media and what's out there, there's a lot of, I think, either false information or, people can easily get scammed or just not be led to the truth so much. There's a lot of, I don't know if I would call it temptation, but there's a lot of, just in general, there's misinformation, and the customer, I think, as a whole, feels kind of left on their own. And maybe, anyway, this is like kind of a silver lining to it, is where the marketer has to come from this position, not as like a salesperson anymore, but like as a friend who just wants to arm someone with the right information so that they can, in this context in firearms, go out there with a great quality product that's going to work, whether they're a civilian trying to defend themselves, like I said, or maybe a law enforcement officer that needs to protect his or her community, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that customer brand relationship is, it's all important for across all the categories. But I think, in our space in particular, so much rides on the product and its reliability and its functionality that you can't screw up. And if you do screw up, you have to bend over backwards to make it right every single time because people talk. There's to your point, because maybe the information is harder to get out. It's harder to make public just because of certain restrictions and censorship. People end up talking amongst themselves, and you can either plant a good seed or a bad seed, and you got to make sure you're always planting good seeds.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You reap what you sow. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, on that note of product, you've spent some time with not only really good reputable firearms brands, but specifically ones where that product is made here in the U.S., which where we're at today, it's not as common, say, maybe as it was like 20, 30 years ago, or maybe even longer than that, where we've just become so used to in a global economy where everything is outsourced and everything is outsourced from multiple different suppliers, supply chain all over the world. But with the brands like you worked with, it seems like predominantly this is made right here in our home turf, right? Talk about that. Talk about what it's like to have experience with some cool with some great manufacturers like that.
Yeah, I think going into it, I was very excited to be able to work for a brand like that, American manufacturing, American jobs, defending American families. I so I was excited going in. When I stepped foot in the factory for the first time, it like was um, the scale was overwhelming. I mean, it was just I felt so much pride in that moment that I was a part of this machine that was so rooted in the same values that that I cherish. It was it was an emotional experience. Honestly, you walk in there, you can hear the hum of the machines. There's a big giant American flag. You can smell the material being worked with, and you're just in the middle of it. And it was it was impressive. I mean, it still kind of gives me chills to think about, all the pride and the craftsmanship and the love that's being poured into the work day in and day out, and to know that it's happening on American soil for Americans. It's incredible.
Percent. No, I know, and I know exactly like the details, the senses that you're talking about. Like I've spent some time in some manufacturing facilities as well, just on shoots for like contract jobs, and yeah, that there is like it's a very sensory experience, right? Yeah, you get the smells of the machinery, the all the sounds of things getting started, and CNC machines like running, and some guy shouting in the distance to some other technician or something,
Clear the aisle. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, right. And yeah, and it's just like there's something I think about just seeing like a group of people just all together in a massive space, like grinding, just showing up like each and every day, working hard to build a great product, and especially now where it's just um like you said, there's so much expectation, I think, right, on the brands to do better. And you really see that level of care that they put into each and every step. It's amazing.
Yeah, and then the next level of that was the fact that every product that we were shipping out is designed to defend freedom, across the states, across the world, and so there's that whole extra level that's the power of it is it's hard to comprehend. But yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Could you speak to do you know if they're, because I mean obviously I mean I know you're marketing pro, you're not in the manufacturing side of things, but do you foresee any like we were talking about innovation earlier, do you see like any new steps in technology, of just like how products in firearms and the outdoors space are stepping up at all, or maybe taking a shift at all? Like, are you able to do you have some insight on like where that's going, technology innovation?
Yeah, I think again, like you said, I'm not a manufacturing expert, but I'll tell you give me my 2 cents. I think a lot of the innovation you're going to see is going to be on the manufacturing side of things, with an effort to speed up product to market. I think today, with Amazon delivering packages 4 hours after you ordered them, I think people have come to expect speed more than anything else. So my gut is that a lot of the innovation will be focused on bringing product to consumers faster. I imagine, I know, speaking from the firearms side of things, there's always a lot of conversations around how the industry itself is innovative, especially from the manufacturing side, but the a lot of the products are based on older designs. I mean, we're constantly making the designs better and improving them and iterating on them and evolving them for sure. But I think the next big step is going to be it's going to have to be something that is being demanded, but maybe totally unexpected. I think that's probably one of the bigger things that the firearms industry is struggling with is like, we're creating something that works, um, is it worth investing in massive innovations, or do we just keep iterating on it? And again, I don't know the answer to that. I wish I was an engineer, but so I think you're going to see some innovation in product. I think you're going to see a lot of innovation in manufacturing. You're going to continue to see small evolutions. Maybe significant ones are coming down the pike, but I think for the most part, you're going to see better manufacturing processes, working with materials better. And then in the end, I also think you're going to see a lot of innovation around how we bring product to customers, how the firearms industry as a whole shows up in the marketplace. I think marketing wise, the firearms industry, because we have been so hamstrung for so long, we're slow to adopt new technology. But I think I get the sense that there's a lot more firearms friendly marketing services that are popping up that will start to kind of revolutionize the way firearms companies market and sell their product.
What would you notice about working with some of the larger manufacturing brands as opposed to, say, smaller and maybe newer ones?
I think smaller and newer brands they have to be a lot more creative on their feet. They have to really cut through and find different ways to cut through and be creative in that sense. And honestly, this goes even beyond firearms. I think you're seeing this actually globally right now. There's a ton of smaller brands that are taking on the big guys because they can kind of sidestep the bureaucratic marketing revenue process and make big splashes and get a ton of attention because they're not handcuffed with like the traditional kind of bureaucracy and way of thinking. And I don't think the firearm space is any different in that respect. I think you're going to see a lot of smaller brands, like I said, across the board, just really connecting with customers, consumers, buyers in a way that the big brands just aren't prepared to commit to.
So it almost is like, in a negative context, you could say it's maybe a race to the bottom, but it kind of just seems like a sort of nimble kind of boots to the ground, more nimble approach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think every tactic has to be like a in your face, like who can do the craziest stunt. I don't think it's that at all. I think it's really there are brands that could win with just unbelievable customer service, right? And if you're the only one that's treating customers the way you're treating them and as well as you're treating them, then I think that's a way for a brand to stand out. So it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily like who's going to jump from the highest tower. It's like, how do we stand out and be unique and be distinct in a way that's really going to get attention, whether that's, again, the best in class customer service, whether that's, white glove treatment and everything you do, whether that's, whether it is the craziest content. I mean, that's obviously going to be a factor as well. But I think it's just a matter of making sure that you have the ability and agility to break through when that opportunity arises.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good point, I guess, and this ties in with entrepreneurship as a whole. Is like it can be easy to kind of fall for like the as Alex Hermosi calls it, the woman in the red dress syndrome, of just like, or shiny object syndrome, where it's, you may be tempted to think like, well, how can I really like jump out with something flashy here? What's like a really like groundbreaking idea? But at the end of the day, I think like what you're saying, it all comes down to just like, how reliable are you? Like what problem are you solving for your customers? Like, are you a good solution for that? And how can you, I guess, just stand out as far as reliability and service? It's really no simpler than that. It's really no more complicated than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It's like, how can you demonstrate your value in an as impactfully as you can, right? So if you can demonstrate your value in a super powerful way, memorable way to, a billion people, then it's going to be a faster race. But if you can do it day by day and it's a grind and you help out one person at a time, you'll eventually get there too. It's just a matter of, keeping your eyes open for those opportunities to really impress people and really break through and nabbing those when they arise. That's harder. That's harder. It's easier said than done. I mean, that's the magic. That's the golden ticket right there.
Right. Yeah, that's the other component is persistence, and yeah, just how long can you stay in the race, right? So I shouldn't even call it a race. It's just how long can you be consistent and just keep showing up. As simpler as that. But so yeah. Remind me again how much time, how many years now you said, like with the timeline of like when you first started with that first company, how long would you say you've been a marketing professional now, like in this space?
Yeah, going on 2 decades. Because I worked through college. I actually worked at our mail and copy center and was doing graphic design there. I think 3 of the 4 years of college, full time. So yeah, going on 2 decades. So a lot has changed. Quite a lot has changed actually, and quite a lot has changed with what I've gotten my hands into as well as far as the creative craft. Like I went from pre-press, digital press operator in college and got into graphic design and eventually got into copywriting and branding and everything is years later. But so the industry has changed quite a bit and my career has kind of taken some twists and turns as well.
Has that been, you think, like the biggest change as far as like going from like more brick and mortar ways of doing things, like I said, with like printing press and all that to just the digital space and say like AI, for instance? Where do you think that's the biggest thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I think it comes back to speed, right? The speed at which things are evolving and moving, the speed at which the market's moving and people are reacting, like the speed at which brands can adapt. If you print a brochure, it costs money and time and, sometimes weeks to get it printed and shipped out, but you can make a change to your website in 30 seconds. Um, so, yeah, I think the speed and some of the tools have changed quite a bit, but I remember back in college, one of my favorite professors really hammered home that it's not about at a time where you're struggling to learn the tools. She hammered home that it's not about the tool, it's about the idea, and I think that really stuck with me. So the tools are changing, the technology is changing, the speed at which the world moves and marketing moves is changing, but the one thing that I don't think will ever change is the power of an idea. And if it's a good idea, how many people that can connect with.
Yeah, and I think maybe that like reliance on just like the tool, like you said, it can be a little dangerous because then at that point you're just kind of following trends, right? Whereas,
Hmm.
the I guess like the base idea, like what you're talking about, um, and solving those problems for brands, for customers, being that solution there at the end of the day, that doesn't really change, right? Doesn't really go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and actually to piggyback on that a little bit, I think what we've seen is the world that we live in has made it much easier to um, disconnect with your customers and maybe not actively disconnect, but not engage in a human way with your customers. There's a lot of studying charts and analytics and, page visitors and impressions and ROAS and all that stuff. And I think that that's one thing that's kind of made us lose our way a little bit as marketers is the human connect. Go talk to somebody. Go get the real scoop. Like you can look at a chart all day and guess 15 different reasons for why it's acting the way it's acting, but there's no harm in just asking either. So I think that human connection where I think there seems to be a trend to sort of kind of get back on that path, and I think it's the pendulum always swings the other way. But I think with all the advancements in technology, marketing technology specifically, I think one thing that was lost pretty quickly was the human connection and the human nature of marketing. because it's all about relationships. I mean, it's all about, even in the most highest tech marketing stack, it's still about relationships. So if you can really understand your customer and you can go out and talk to them and get the real scoop, I think you're going to have a leg up on a lot of people that are just kind of looking at charts and making guesses.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that spills over, let alone in my line of work, in video production. I think some of the and this I always try to like say this to clients too, is like, they may come to me with like some kind of grandiose idea or like a vision for a project or a video. But you also need to have that conversation of like, well, like, what's going to be like best for you and for your customer, and for trying to maintain that relationship and to also engage with newer audiences. So for instance, like maybe you want to do testimonials, again, like the reliability component, or demonstrating the product in a cool creative way, or what I like to do, sort of at the end of the day, I think just telling a story is king. Storytelling, resonates with everybody, with human beings. It's, we've been doing it for thousands of years, and it's you factor that into marketing, telling a good story. I mean, like what you do, obviously, with your customers. I mean, I think that's like the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think people will always remember a good story. We've been telling stories our entire existence, and the best teachers teach with stories. I think it's easy to just get focused on your product and the bells and whistles that come along with it. But when you can show the impact of those bells and whistles, those features and that functionality in the real world, and tell a story around it, weave a story around it, show how it impacted people, show how it changed people's lives, show how it helped people. I think that's going to win every time.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, I was gonna ask, but you kind of like beat me to it by giving your thoughts. I was gonna ask, maybe with the experience you have and the knowledge you have, like what advice would you have for new up and coming people entering in marketing? It sounds like being good at making being a relatable person, having conversations, right? And storytelling. Anything else, like any other tips, insights you would give to someone that's coming right out of the gates?
Yeah, storytelling. I think making sure that it's about the idea and not the tool. Absolutely, that's a hard one for young creatives to get their head wrapped around, because they're so enamored with the tools. I was too. I was exactly the same way. I mean, I would show creative pieces that took me hours to do in Illustrator that had no soul, I was real proud of them because of the craft that went into them, but there was no soul behind it, and they just didn't land. And that's a hard one to learn. And you kind of have to learn it the hard way most times. Um, I think another thing for young marketers or young creatives is make sure you're always telling the truth. One of my philosophies is that the best creative tells the truth in a way that it's never been told before. And I think that's what grips people in a good story. Is, we look at the Aesop's fables, right? It's telling kind of unique kind of human truths in ways that are very unique. So I think if you focus on telling the truth, but just focus on a different way of telling that same truth, that's a huge kind of a hack to make things really interesting for folks. So focus on telling the truth. Learn to sell your ideas, because as a creative, and again, this is speaking from experience, you have a harebrained idea and you go execute on it, and it's, in your opinion, it's the best thing since sliced bread, but and that it's going to work. You're like, yeah, this is going to work. I'm sure it's going to work. Well, first of all, make sure that it's going to work. Like, come prepared to argue that, but learn to sell your ideas, because more and more times than not, especially these days, marketers are reporting to people that think in dollars and cents. So make sure you come prepared to speak their language and sell your ideas speaking their language. I think that's something that is not it's not innate for a lot of creative folks, but it can give you an absolute edge.
So for instance, like with this like younger generation, I think just it is kind of not a it's not an anomaly. You see this like quite often where, you know, millennials, Gen Zers, you know, just young people, because I think we're just so inundated with our phones, we're afraid to just go up and approach people but even just get on the phone with somebody and just talk to them. How valuable do you think like it is to do like the old fashioned way, maybe get on a cold call or something? Cause I
Yeah,
found power in that myself.
yeah, I hate cold calling. I think you and I talked about this before. I'm not a fan. I think as I was beginning to build up my clients, it's a lot of cold emails and it's a lot of rejection, and it's those emails just disappear and never come back. But I think if your offer is good and you can actually provide value, and again, if you could sell the fact that you can provide value, I think eventually all those all those disheartening non-responses will result in success. I think it's very, very important to not be afraid to put yourself out there and cold call, cold email. Again, it's not easy. It's soul sucking in a lot of ways. But if you find the right person, man, those relationships can really flourish because they recognize your value. And then if you obviously deliver on that value, that relationship will just continue to grow. So it's not the most glorious work in the world, but it's definitely valuable. And in today's day and age, I mean, there's really no excuse not to. Like you can anybody you want to speak with, you can find a way to connect with them one way or another. So there's really no excuse not to. Not having somebody's phone number is not an excuse. You can figure out other ways to get in touch with them. I think Twitter or X showed everybody that years ago when people were tweeting it like Elon Musk and he was responding, or people were tweeting it. What's the other guy? Mark Cuban, and he was responding. It was just weird kind of realization. Oh man, these people are like, I can actually, they're not that far off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's never been easier, I think, to have access to, let alone somebody's like contact information, number one, but just having, you know, access about like you could even, if you did your research, you could probably even figure out like what a business's problems are, and maybe
Hmm.
determine like your pitch before you even get on the call. And I mean, I hate cold calling too. I mean, I haven't really done it in a while, and I haven't had a lot of success with it. But I think like even if maybe like for people starting out, it's like you don't have to view it as like this has got to be my strategy going forward. It could just be a an invaluable exercise to try out because let's say maybe you don't get any sales out of it, you don't get anything out of it. It's still just what people will call as like exposure therapy, right? It just
Hmm.
shapens you up for interactions and conversations that may make you feel very shell shocked and nervous at first, but it allows you to get more in the habit of solidifying your approach, your pitch, how you convey a message to certain people, to your buyers, put it that way. So and who knows? And maybe it's like, okay, fine, I'll go in with that approach, and then maybe you never know. Maybe somebody actually does buy from you, and like, oh, this is actually working. So it's you
Yep.
really can't lose. I think at the end of the day.
No, I think that's 100% right. Immersion therapy is a perfect way of putting it. Yeah, like you're gonna, if nothing else, you will learn, throughout the journey of the soul sucking cold calling for sure.
You will.
You'll hone your pitch. You'll be less afraid to call somebody the next time. You'll be less afraid to if somebody in a store you're going to need some help in your opinion, you'd be less afraid to bring it up to them at the checkout line. Like yeah, it's definitely valuable. It's not, it's intimidating to say the least, but it's definitely valuable.
Absolutely. And the other thing is you have nothing to lose, really. I mean, it's like worst case, they say no, they hang up and they forget about you and you forget about them, you move on. You pick up and move on.
Hmm.
Then you get on to the next person. nobody was hurt at the end of the day. So, and yeah, it does. You're right. It does allow you to improve and get better as you try and have those conversations more and more, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What we talked about before we got on talking about, I guess, like new developments like going forward for maybe the future of say firearms and as well as marketing. I guess like the two different realms there, but they kind of coincide. What what do you see for like the future in those areas?
Yeah, so I think we're gonna see firearms companies specifically adopting marketing technology more quickly. I think they've been historically slow to react to new marketing technology. I think you're going to see a lot more of that coming up here in the future. I think you're going to see a lot more content. You know, we talked about the censorship and the kind of our hurdles and obstacles in the marketing and firearm space. I think again, using ambassadors and athletes and influencers has been really good to the industry, and I think you're going to see more of that. Um, I think you're going to see a lot of new faces in that realm as well. I think the barrier to entry there is pretty low. Good personality and an iPhone, and you can change the world, right? So I think I think you're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more smaller influencers kind of stealing attention share for sure.
Yeah, it seems like I'm hearing that a lot as far as like the rise of micro influencers, so to speak. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I'm echoing everything you said, but I wonder too is like do you think people are kind of losing their trust with some of the bigger influencers, and maybe they see someone that's maybe got a smaller following, and maybe they're supporting maybe smaller brands, they find them more trustworthy? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't envy influencers. I think it's can be a very fickle um, line of work as far as like holding the trust of your audience. I think there's people aren't stupid. They can sniff out if somebody's getting paid for something or not. And I think the most lasting influencers are going to be the ones that are the most honest and transparent with their audiences, because that's at the end of the day, people just want you to be honest with them, right? And so if the influencers can do that, then I think they'll last a long time. I think to your point, micro influencers are popping up a little more because there's an assumption that they're not bought and paid for as much as some of the bigger influencers are. Um, so there's still going to be a balance, I think, but I think that's kind of that that thinking has kind of opened up a new avenue for kind of the smaller influencers that are, and honestly, a lot of the influencers that I've met, I mean, obviously they're fantastic people, but they're doing it because they love doing it. You know, a lot of them aren't really even in it for the money. They're like, hey, I love going to the range, and I love giving my opinions, and this seems like a fit, and so they just do it for the love of doing it. And that's again, that's something that people can feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think you're absolutely right, because I mean, I think to live that life. I mean, I don't envy it either, but it is kind of a crapshoot to just take a video, even with a smartphone, of you like going at the range and just maybe saying a nice, genuine piece about a product you're using, whether it's a holster or headgear, what have you, and then just putting it out there, and you know you're kind of leaving it up to fate at that point, is to like if you do get picked up. And yeah, I think people recognize that. I think you know it's all about the message, and seeing somebody actively using is huge. It is kind of a testimonial commercial in and of itself, and somebody
Hmm.
that's doing that on the daily is huge.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think Robert Cialdini calls it social proof. It's just seeing somebody just like you enjoying the product, like that's just makes it that much easier for you to wrap your head around, getting it for yourself. So that's yeah, I think that's never going to lose value.
Yeah, absolutely. With all that said, do you I guess, do you feel more positive, or maybe a bit like negative? I'm not to use the word negative, but do you feel like maybe a little more afraid, or like how do you feel? I guess as a whole in general for the future of this industry.
Oh, that's a great question. I think honestly, positive. I think that it's. I think a lot of the misconceptions are slowly being chipped away at. I think it's that's still a long ways off. There's a lot of misconceptions, but I think a lot of them are slowly being chipped away at. I think people's um, you know maybe fear or aversion of firearms is starting to erode a little bit, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. The more you should be familiar and know how to respect them and
I
know
don't
how to
think
use
so.
them.
Why do you think that is?
Um, why?
Yeah, why do you think that aversion is starting to go away?
I think a lot of it comes back to the idea of self reliance. And after the last 4 years, people are realizing that maybe nobody is going to come for me. Maybe the protection of my family is on my shoulders, and that goes for hunting and fishing and all that as well. So I think that there was again kind of a moment where people were like, "Oh, this is on me," and so I think that's kind of at least opening people's ears and minds and hearts to at least hear conversations.
Yeah, it's brave new world, I guess. It's exciting, and
Yeah,
it's cool to see, I guess, yeah, newcomers into the space, and I'm one of them. I'm just putting all my money and time into filmmaking, but I will be getting a gun for sure, and make that I'm looking forward to making that just a fun hobby, but also something that I can take seriously, and like you said, the self-reliance component. That's something that I aspire for, is to have those skills and be equipped in the case of, if I am in danger or if my family's in danger.
hmm
So I think it's, yeah, I definitely do see that a lot of more, maybe people that you didn't expect are taking interest in this. So it's wonderful.
yeah, yeah. And I'd say to folks that are maybe on the fence or not interested or maybe curious about it, like just do as much research as you can. Um, talk to people. Don't be afraid to talk to people about it. Your cousin, your brother-in-law or whatever, like ask them about it. Most of the folks are happy it's a hobby, right? So they're excited to talk about it. They're excited to bring new people in. I think the industry is definitely intimidating, I think as a whole. But honestly, it comes back to what I recognized right away was that this is the salt of the earth. These people will give you the shirt off their back, and don't be afraid to talk to them and ask questions and just learn and consume as much content as you can to really understand what you're getting into. Don't underestimate the value of training. Training is incredibly important. I'm not great about it, but training with a firearm is um, extremely important, and probably not. There's probably not enough emphasis on that, and so I think that's if you have one but you don't train with it, um, it can be dangerous. If you have one and you're comfortable with it, and you train with it, and you're safe with it, you follow all the rules, then you'll be fine.
No, I love that mindset for sure. I think that's very important to get across, to convey. And yeah, I mean, the safety component is huge. I mean, like the first time I stepped foot on a range, like I was not surprised, but I was I guess amazed at how seriously everybody took the safety side of things, and how like careful and observant they were about like every step you would take. Like so in my case, I'm
Yes.
talking about right when I'm like filming them, like when I would go to a range and like
hmm
film shooters, and they would just be like don't step there, or it's like
hmm
maybe if I got like an angle of them that was like that they didn't want the public to see because they made a mistake. It would be like, hey, I made an error there. It's like, don't capture that, or like, because they care about, not only do they care about what other people see, and what maybe like you said, these people on the fence or these sort of bystanders would see, but they no, they genuinely care about their own safety and they care about my safety, everybody in the range.
Yep. Yep. 100%. That's a good range. That's going to be their top priority is safety. And the range officers, they can be intimidating, but they're usually the nicest folks. Just don't do anything stupid, and they'll stay off your case. But yeah, like, it's, it's if you're intimidated, go with a friend that's gone. Let them kind of show you the ropes. There's a lot of rules that you'll have to learn pretty quickly, but you learn them quickly. And if you don't, the safety officer they'll yell at you for a little bit, and then they'll be your best friend. So it's just a part of it. So don't let the intimidation factor kind of keep you away.
Yeah, absolutely. You could maybe argue that there's probably more safety on a range than there is in like driver's ed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we've hit on a lot today. Maybe we just like wrap this up. We talk a little bit about your own brand and what you've got going on, what you're doing for all the different unique, interesting firearms and outdoors related brands out there.
Yeah, so I recently hung my own shingle. It's something I've been considering for a long, long time. And it just felt like the right time to go ahead and give it a shot. And so I'm essentially doing branded marketing consulting for firearms and outdoor brands. If you're not a firearm and outdoor brand, don't let that scare you away, though. I'll absolutely have a conversation with you. And so, my offering is brand identity strategy, marketing strategy, creative direction. The way I've kind of modeled this thing is to not exactly like a fractional situation, but for me to be kind of the point of contact. And if you need whatever, I would organize the right pieces and parts to kind of get that together for you. So for the smaller brands that maybe don't have the budget for a big creative director, brand director, marketing director, that's something that I'd love to take on and build something unique for that brand and distinct for that brand with all the right pieces.
And now, when did you officially launch your agency? How long has it been?
Beginning of September, so like not even 25 days ago.
Nice.
I've been doing freelance for forever, but I officially kind of went out on my own. Yeah, about just under a month ago.
Love that. That's awesome. Well, I love the pitch. I love what you're doing, and congratulations on the leap.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's been a leap for sure, leap of faith.
Yeah, I know that. I can 100% relate.
Yep.
Mike, do you have any final thoughts, any wisdom or insight you want to give?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm qualified to give away any wisdom yet. Uh, just if just go out and hunt and fish and go to the range and enjoy yourself. It's something that's unique to this country. It's something that everybody should experience. The idea of taking care of yourself and your family is something that's starting to be lost in time a little bit. It seems like it's coming back maybe a little bit, but take care of yourself and learn how to do those things. And just have fun.
Love that. That's very powerfully put, Mike. Love it. Very strong. Yeah. Well, Mike, wrapping up, I guess, like give any like plugs, any like where should people find you if they want to learn more about you, maybe work with you?
Yeah. So honestly, this is probably not good for me to say as a marketing person, but I just got rid of social media, everything besides LinkedIn,
Nice.
within the last
Me
few
too.
months. So you can find me. Yeah. Yeah. It's been nice
It
actually.
is nice.
My wife still shows me all the messages she's sending me in Instagram. So we lay in bed at night and she scrolls through all the messages, all the funny cat videos she sent me that I haven't been seeing. But yeah, if you want to connect or chat or whatever, I'm always open for anything. I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's / Mike Vollman. You can just type in Mike Vollman, you'll find me. And then MikeVollman.com.
Love it, Mike. Mike, thank you so much for coming on, man. This is a really great conversation. I think a lot of people get a lot of value of this for sure. So we'll have to do this again too.
Awesome. Well, absolutely, yeah. And thank you for having me. Great conversation.